am really, really excited to have you all here today. I'm very excited as well to have Scott Messer with us. I'm going to introduce Scott, tell you a little bit about Scott from my own experience in just a second. But first, I want to talk a little bit about the agenda and kind of what to expect and how this is going to go. I'm going to have about a 30-minute conversation with our guest, Scott Messer. We're going to run the bases and talk about a lot of things that make Scott special, make his why his approach to sales is so unique, and kind of talk about a lot of the really interesting viewpoints he has that I think are hard to find in sales with sales professionals and coaches. And so I'm excited to kind of cover a lot of really great content and conversation with Scott. We will open it up to questions and answers. So if you want to like really engage, ask, come off mute, ask Scott a question. We'll have time for that towards the end. And you are welcome to chat in questions throughout the conversation. And if we see them, if the timing feels right, Scott likes to kind of flow and be free form. So we may just jump in, take some questions as they're chatted, but there will be time at the end. So again, thank you for being here. First up, just to tell you guys a little bit about Scott. Scott is a Philadelphia native, at least regional. I'm not sure exactly where you're living. Where are you living, Scott?
Philadelphia suburbs.
Philadelphia suburbs. So I met Scott many years ago, worked with him for a period of time, and he opened my eyes to sales. And I'm just going to share one quick story where, and this was so fundamental to me, but I was getting on a very big prospect. We had done a little bit of business with him. We weren't sure if it was going to expand into this much bigger deal. And Scott says to me, he's helping me prepare for the call, and he says, "Okay, well, what's your agenda? Like, what's your plan? What are you going to do for the call?" And I said, "Well, I got this whole plan. I got all these things I want to do. I want to get out of the call. These are all this is what I'm thinking." And he goes, "Okay, well, what do they want to get out of the call?" So I don't know. He goes, "Well, that's your agenda. That's the only thing that matters." And then Scott gave me some really nice language to help me go onto the call and kind of open up by candidly saying to them, "Hey, I know we've done a lot of work together. I know you guys seem like you're interested in working with us, but what is it that you want? What is it that we can do to make this relationship successful?" And the prospect just spilled their guts and told us everything. And it was this magical moment where I saw that sales was not about me. It wasn't about my agenda. It wasn't about my solution. It was truly about them and this whole agenda that they had going on their side. And so it was just this nice shift in my mentality around what was sales, what was selling, and that it was not about me. It wasn't about my service or my product or my agenda or what I was trying to make happen. It was truthfully always about them and what was going on. At the end of the day, they were going to buy or not buy, but they had something going on. And if I didn't understand what that was, I was like, it was a lost cause. And so Scott, with that was a little bit about like Scott's methodology, which we're going to spend a little more time on. And then what I'm hoping you all will get out of today's call is like how to get to yes or no faster with your prospects, mostly how to get to yes. And then of course, like how to get the truth from your buyers, like what's really going on behind the scenes, what are they really looking for, and how important that is in the sales process, understanding the reasons why they buy. And then I'm hoping you guys are going to all walk away with a dozen tactics and things that you can use immediately. And I know Scott's just like, they're just coming out of his ears and every orifice right now, because that's how he is. So with that, I want to introduce Scott Messer. He is a sales guru. I would call him wizardly in terms of like how he approaches the space. And I'm very happy to have you here, Scott. If you wouldn't mind, just like say hello to the audience. Tell us anything that you want to tell us about yourself, and then let's get this conversation going.
Well, what a great introduction. Thank you, Patrick. That's very kind of you. And hello to everyone out there. I recognize a lot of names, a number of people that I've worked with before. Thanks for joining in. Hopefully you'll get reminded of a couple of things maybe you forgot along the way. And Patrick, your opening story is what guest-free selling, that's the name of my methodology, is really all about, which is spotlight out on them, not on you, the seller. If we recognize that people buy for their reasons, not ours, it can be very, very helpful in determining whether or not we can do business with them. What you described, I would call, take a note on this one, everybody. Discover their dream and allow them to buy it back from you. How hard is it to allow somebody to buy back their own dream? But if you don't know what it is and you're promoting your product, your service, your whatever, that's not their agenda. That's your agenda.
I love it. And what I want to do is I was comparing your approach and what a lot of things I learned from you to, like, for lack of a better term, there's like textbook sales, and like people will call sales, there's consultative sales, there's like this sales process, there's this way we sell, there's this way we sell. I feel like any of them are failing approaches if you don't understand the buyer first. But so we can all put a framework around this. Mm-hmm. What do you call this approach? I mean, I know you call it guest free selling, but is it consultative sales? It's certainly not hard sales, which we all are familiar with, like the hard sales guy, but like, what is this approach? How does it compare to other approaches? I mean, like, mm-hmm. What do you call it?
Well, the methodology itself, the stages of it are the same as every other methodology out there. There's the investigation, there's authority, there's investment, presentation. A big difference is what everybody calls proposal. I call agreement, because a proposal is a guess. And I teach people how to write the deal with their prospect. So there's no proposing. Second, there is no closing. If you have to ask your buyer to buy your stuff, you have not done a good job. One of the top responsibilities, I'm not going to call it a job, I'm going to call it a responsibility, Patrick, for a salesperson is to create internal pressure in their buyer that they have to have your stuff, whatever your stuff is. Convincing is just way, way too hard. And if any salesperson comes out of a call and says, if they just understood what we could do for them, they didn't do a very good job of conveying it. So I would call it a no close, no guess, honest approach to selling.
So when you say, I want to unpack a couple of things. So you say, like, okay, there should be an agreement, not a proposal, right? Correct. I mean, of course, you do need to eventually get something signed and so forth. But what does that mean in the sales process? What is it that your goal should be then? If your goal is to get to an agreement, what does that look like before you say, well, do you want a proposal? Because I'm guilty. I ask people all the time, do you want a proposal? But give me some color around, like, getting to an agreement.
Well, I'm going to ask you a question back, if I may, which is, you're pushing out all these proposals, right? How many of them go into space and you never hear back from?
Yeah, right, sure. It's probably 60%, 70%.
You okay with that?
I'm not. This is it. You're doing it to me. Scott's about to get me on an agreement. But no, I'm not okay with it. Yeah. So how do we stop that from happening?
Sure. Well, first of all, you have to know a sales process. And I would challenge any of the business owners out there to grab the first salesperson walking down the hall or at your next sales meeting, hand everybody a blank piece of paper and ask them to write down the company sales process and give them 3 minutes to do it. You'll be shocked at how few people actually even know that. And if sales is a profession, which it is, and your income, and if you're an owner, you've got a lot more on the line than that, and they don't even know what the sales process is, that's a problem. You have to take them through the sales process, but buyers don't like going through your process. They have their own process, right? I mean, how many of you, quick show of hands, how many of you in the first 15 minutes get asked, how much does it cost, right? I mean, all the time. How big is your company? All that kind of stuff. They're bad buyers. They set the call up and they want to see a proposal. Well, that's all premature. You've got to go through the sales process. Guys, remember this, and Patrick, this is getting inside your buyer's head because this is incredibly sexy. When you go in thinking that you qualify for them and you're there to figure out whether or not they qualify for you, it turns this sales process upside down.
And so I want to unpack that, if they qualify for you, because I was just having a call today around qualifying calls, and we were talking about what qualifying questions we should be asking and so forth. So whether they qualify for us or we qualify for them, I want to spend time on that. But you're suggesting, just to the first point, that as part of your sales process, it should be about the agreement in there. That agreement is a step in the process where you've come to the decision.
It's the final step in the process. Okay, I'll get back to your real question. There's something in every sales methodology called expectation management, right? And expectations include how you're going to communicate, how much time do you have for a call? I mean, there's all sorts of expectations throughout. And the real job of a salesperson is to collect decisions, not close deals. And so what you have to do to determine whether or not they qualify is have them agree to put together a mutual process, mutual, you and them, with milestones or gates. We call it a reverse timeline that has every step laid out. And when you get to the first one and it's completed, you ask them, do you want to go to the next one or is it over? If you get past that, do you want to go to the next one or is it over? And when you get to the end, there's only one more decision they have to make. It's pretty likely going to be a yes. Part of that is you're going to have to send them paperwork at some point. Don't send it prematurely. That's the last thing. There should never be anything in it that they've not seen before, including the pricing. At the end of the day, they may or may not approve it and send it back. However, there shouldn't be anything in there that they can't say yes to.
Can you just quickly do the reverse? I got frozen.
Sure. Okay. So Dan, you and I are talking and you say, yeah, I'm really interested in this. I'd like to learn more. I'm going to grab a piece of paper and I'm going to put a dot on each end of the paper and draw a line between it. And I say, today is October 26th, not presupposing, and you always go with not presupposing. I'm sure there's a good chance we're not going to do business together. You always throw a lot of that in. But when would you like to go live? And you'll tell me February 1st, whatever it is. Okay, I write the date on one end, write the date on the other, and go, James, what do you need to see from me between now and then to get comfortable that this does or doesn't make sense for you? And every time you say something, I'm going to say, what else? What else? What else? And I can just write them all down until you're done. And then I'm going to say to you, Dan, I need a couple of things too. And I'm going to tell you what I need from you. Got it? And we're going to go back to the date of go live, and we're just going to mutually organize this thing. Anytime we get to a no, just raise your hand. It's okay. It's all right. Because I'm going to do the same thing if I don't see it working. Are you all right with that? And when you hear things like that, how are you feeling, Dan? Feeling good? Feeling comfortable? You think you're in control, but for the first time ever, as a salesperson, as a business developer, you are in control. Why? Well, first of all, it finally has an end. all of Patrick's paperwork that's floating out in space, filling up cabinets, right? For their files. They must have warehouses full of files for all the component proposals that have picked up over time. So first of all, it has an end. That's huge. And second, they have made a commitment. And one of the things that you need when you're putting a reverse timeline together is you got to tell them, I need you to honor the commitments you make because I'm going to honor mine. Wow. Powerful.
I love how granular you just got into this process, and I'm coming through good because there's the overarching thing I understand, which is how do we get in their head and so forth, but then you're also sharing like an actual process by which you can have everything basically ironed out as an agreement before that proposal goes live. So one thing I'm taking away from this is I'm not going to send any more proposals until I get these things fully ironed out. And when a client asks for one or asks for pricing, I think I'm going to need to figure out my steps or figure out their steps, our mutual journey, right? But that I don't move forward and send that proposal until we have those things ironed out together.
Yeah, Patrick, by the way, and again, for everybody in the room, somebody asks for pricing way too early. There's two things you can say. If you want to be nice, you can say, I don't think we're there yet. There's a lot of stuff I don't know yet, and I really can't tell you. Can I ask you a couple more questions before we get to that? And that always mollifies them. The other thing is, these are really powerful sales words. I think we're in trouble. Massive pattern interrupt. And by the way, a big part of this process is pattern interrupts. We've got to throw them off their game and get them looking at things very, very differently. Otherwise, they're going to take you through their process. And they're going to go, what do you mean we're in trouble? I say, well, anytime anybody asks in the first 15 minutes how much it is, it's a price deal. And our stuff's expensive.
I love this. I love the sound bites. And not the sound bites, these tactics. I mean, That is powerful. That's powerful stuff.
But the other thing, Patrick, is since we're talking about money, if everybody's okay with it, because we're free forming it here, you do have to get into their heads. If I asked you how much is a car and you told me $50,000, I said, $50,000 for a car? Are you kidding me? You go, yeah, but it's the latest Rolls Royce. Well, then now it's not much, right? $50,000 for the latest model of the Rolls Royce. Okay, so you cannot give out pricing without context. So write this down, everybody. I'm ready to tell you when you're ready to tell them, by the way, okay? When the time comes to tell them how much it is. But I need to ask you two questions first, and I don't want you to tell me the answer, but you need to know the answer to these two questions. The first question is, what's the value of this solution for you? Don't tell me the answer. What's the value? I'm sorry, Larry Nippon. I know, you've heard this 1,000 times, but there you go. Okay, so do you have it? Great. Here's the second question. How much do you think you need to pay to go after it? And again, don't tell me the answer. Let me know that you know the answer. I'll tell you how much it is. Now, out of that little role play, the first numbers they need to hear in their heads are their numbers. Now there's context to your number. And if you know your business, you know how much it ought to cost, right? And so should they. So as long as you are within, some of this, you'll get the deal, or at least your pricing will be good enough to get the deal. Does that make sense? Never tell them or talk about money except in the context of what they're looking to do and why it's important to them. You said you want to do A, you want to do B, you want to do C, D is very important to you. But I'm going to tell you how much it is. Answer these two questions first. Boom. There you go. Now it's related to them and their issue, and you are in their head.
Love it. We have a request for a question from Mikhail N.
Close, Michal. Scott, this is amazing. You're blowing my mind. So I'm a matchmaker, and so I have these conversations a lot. And when I like painting the pictures, like imagine your wife. But I was just working on the FAQs on my website, and I was thinking about putting the price range on my website. Do you recommend not doing that? Because I want to put it in writing somewhere, right?
That's that's a marketing thing more than a sales thing. And I don't want to give you the wrong answer.
I'll field that one from a marketing perspective, which is you want to get people into your funnel. So whatever you put on your website should be the low barrier entry call to action. And you could say like starting at, or just even like request pricing or something, but your goal is to get the conversation and not to, and even like we have pricing on our website, and I do it to build trust and comfort with people to get them on the call. But that's like our beginning pricing, and our plans and our average deal size is actually much higher. But it shows that we're affordable for where we're going. Now, as we go towards bigger clients, eventually that may just go away. But I think you do want to have something that definitely doesn't scare people away and gets them to just like go through the funnel, because you need to get them into your sales process. So maybe just request a quote or pricing, or
Great.
This is assuming that your first sales call is free. Is that right? Should they all be free?
Again, I like that, because a big part of selling, frankly, is lowering their risk and building trust. And the cost of my time is incredibly high, but it's also incredibly low, if you know what I mean. So if you go in thinking you're not going to get it, it frees your head to listen. The real reason that they're talking to you, they think you can help them. So what is your responsibility? To try to help them, directly or indirectly, whether you do business with them or not. I've gotten referrals from people I didn't do business with. I've gotten lots of clients from people that I gave away free time to.
I was gonna say, Scott, you had in some of the notes when I was preparing for this, you had a note around like your products or services are free. So what are they really buying?
Yeah.
What do you mean by that though? I mean, in the sense that they're free.
Sure. Your competition is good. You're good. Your products and services are good. Everybody's going to be priced within this much or that much. No one is looking for sales training or sales coaching. Patrick, when they're talking to you, they're not looking for leads. What they're looking for is what that does for them in terms of driving their personal goals. If I'm talking to somebody in a family business and they're third generation, I'm just smiling inside thinking, check please, because I know that what this person is buying is they don't want to be the one that blew up 60 years of a successful business, put 11 family members out on the street, lose their reputation. That's what they're buying, okay? If I'm talking to the CEO of a holding company, they're one of the portfolio companies. I had one guy tell me this. He said, I'm sick of going into meetings with 6 other CEOs, and I'm always in last place. That's what they were buying.
I think so. Well, Scott, I want to ask a question around what makes a great salesperson and how you spot them. And I heard something when I was young in my career that, like, you want the salesperson that just, bought the big house, brand new car, has, 3 kids, right? And they are motivated, right? They're ready to make money. They got big needs. So that's like one thing that that makes sense to me, right? But beyond that, what are the attributes that you look for in a great salesperson, or how do you know when you found one?
Well, listening is really the biggest and greatest skill of a salesperson. I think emotional detachment is really, that's something that can be trained. But I want someone who's literate, okay? Somebody who is willing and eager to learn, someone who wants to live their best life, live their values. I know these don't sound like traditional selling sorts of things, but I think pretty much anybody can be a very good salesperson because, again, it's a profession. I got into it. You guys will laugh. I was a horrible student. Okay. I graduated college. I couldn't do anything else. Okay. So I went into sales and I discovered a lot of things along the way and figured out, the 3 pillars and, a lot of things, and just really discovered that my products and services were no big deal. And I apologize, but neither are yours. They can get them anywhere.
We have a question or two chatted in that I think we're going to come to in just a couple of minutes, which is I'm going to open it up in about 5-10 minutes to everybody to ask questions. And where Scott froze a few minutes ago, if somebody wants to kind of kickstart that thought or that nugget for him in just a few minutes and phrase it as a question, we can go back around to it. I know trust and comfort are 2 things that you shared with me around why people buy, right? When they feel trust and comfort. And you, by the way, when I first met Scott, he closed me within the first 2 minutes of meeting him. And I can tell you guys how I did it, or how he did it. It was incredible. But he sat down with me. I was referred to him by a good friend. The first thing that came out of his mouth was, "So Patrick, I know that you're looking for this, and Chris said good things. And what can I do to make you comfortable for us to work together?" And I was like, "Well, I guess I already am comfortable." He's like, "Oh, good. Well, then this will be easy. Like, let's have breakfast." And we just kind of like flowed into an agreement together and got working. But it was amazing, and the trust came through the relationship that referred us and a few other things. But I want to understand what you how you define trust, because it's not just we're the company, right? And that the company is legit, and that what I'm telling you is legit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how do you define trust? How do you build trust and comfort with somebody that you just met?
Trust, the way I define it in sales, is the greater the degree that they believe that you will put your financial or economic interest aside to help them achieve what they're looking to achieve. The more they believe that, the greater the trust. They need to know that you are interested in helping them, not make a sale. And you can do that in any number of different ways, but primarily it's asking the questions and speaking to the things that get them comfortable. I don't do it too much anymore, but I've done a number of speaking engagements for various associations and such. And typically this gets kicked down to the executive director or even an admin. One of the things I always say to them is, I want to let you know that if I don't think I'm a good person for this, I'm not going to take the job, because I understand what a difference it makes to you, Sally or Bill, whoever it is, that at the end of this, when the president of the association comes over and says to you, "It was a good conference this year, but man, where did you get that speaker?" That's not a good thing. And what you really want to hear is, "Great conference this year. The speaker was fantastic." He said, "I understand the difference between those 2 things. And my first obligation is to make sure you hear that." How do you think that person, that executive director, is feeling at that moment? Nobody ever said that to them before. When I probably said this to you, Patrick, something along the lines at some point, my first obligation is to Chris for introducing us. So if I don't think this is a good fit, I'm not taking it on. You have to say the things that nobody else says and take the risk off of them. It's a big deal. I could give any number of examples, but I think you guys get it, right?
Yeah, and I am cheating a little bit over here because I've got some notes from Scott, and I just want to cover some of these things because I think Scott has so much, so much that we can all walk away from. So, Scott, you got something here called the three-legged sales stool. And people, process, buzzwords, and then you basically said that it seems like you're putting importance on buzzwords. Walk me through the three-legged sales stool: people, process, buzzwords. What are buzzwords? What are you talking about?
Sure. Well, people, there's something called relationship management, but people are people, buyers, sellers, any industry. Your buyers are people, and you need to have a good sense of that. As I said earlier, you need to have a sales process. Actually, Patrick, perhaps I did not write it effectively, but buzzwords, you need to know some buzzwords. I think my point is that if you are someone who knows people very well, human nature, and you've got the sales process down cold and your head is right, you can give that person a couple hours of buzzword training, send them out in the field or put them on the phones, and within a very short period of time, they'll be one of your top performers. It's not about your collateral material, as great as it is. Everybody here's got a pretty good website, right? Okay. If that was all it took to get great business, everybody's business would be great. Okay. That's not it. Okay. You've got to know people in and out. You've got to get inside their heads, get them comfortable, get them to trust you, get them to share their dream with you, because when you know their dream, you are the safest person to buy from. Everybody else is selling their stuff, okay? You're selling them back their dream.
And I think to use it, I don't know if I have another word for buzzwords, but to use an example, and I think you provide language that is very disarming, and you said pattern interrupting earlier, right? Is that what you mean by buzzwords? Are like uh-oh, or like, hey, understanding what are those triggers that, like, to that executive director, the thing that they're going to care about, that the speaker was fantastic, or that this happened or that happened. Is that what you mean by buzzwords? Some of the language that you can kind of be armed with to lubricate the conversation or to open the thing, or what do you mean by that?
Well, buzzwords, every industry has their language, technology, marketing, pixels, whatever, okay? Patrick, I sold software, enterprise software for 10 years, okay? I can't turn on a computer, but I sold a ton of it because I was able to discover what they were looking to do. I knew enough to have a sense of whether or not our stuff would or wouldn't work there. And then I'd bring in the really smart people and let them talk bits and bytes and chips and wires and whatever, okay? I wasn't gonna get involved with that other stuff because that's not what they were buying. And the language does need to be specific. People, stop sending contracts. Start sending the paperwork. Start sending agreements. Send the docs over for approval. Don't ask anybody to sign anything. Can you okay the paperwork and we'll get going? It's supposed to be disarming. It's that comfort thing again.
Well, let's open it up to some questions from the group here. If anybody wants to go live and ask, anybody want to come off mute and ask a question?
Hey, so that's a great technique, that the reverse timeline. I think that some of the most successful closes I've ever had, or successful cycles, start with that, with another party that's willing to engage in that. It's also a trial close to see whether they're serious and have somewhat the juice, but then that schedule often slips.
Sure.
And unless you're talking to someone that has even more to lose or gain higher up in the food chain. So how do you use this conversation to comfortably get them to get you upstairs? As you're trying to gain commitment based on the timeline?
If they need approval, Byron, for the timeline, and by the way, a quick detour here. The difference between a suspect and a prospect is simple. They are a suspect until they agree to engage in this mutual process to figure it out, okay? But getting back to your question, you build it with them, and then you say, before we commit to this, who else has to bless this internally? that we're going to follow this timeline. And so if they need to go to their boss or their boss's boss or whatever, say, well, get permission. And then that could be the first gate, by the way. I had one, it was seemingly a good prospect. The first gate was they had to go to the president and get permission to go forward. President said no, it was over. And I was thrilled. An early decision. I didn't have to do any more work. They honored their commitment. Next.
And the no is, it's not a priority, not necessarily no, this isn't this particular, solution that isn't even formed yet is not acceptable. It's just not a priority.
Yeah, if it's not a number 1 or 2 priority, you're probably not getting it done.
Yeah. How about when, and this is the real question. I don't know if anyone's ever experienced this, but prospects lie. They have their own agenda. They want to reduce their risk, as you say. So they go, oh, I'm the one deciding. No one else needs to know. And that's the tricky part.
Here's what you need to ask them, Byron. You never ask anybody if they're the decision maker. Never ask that question, because what you are really saying is, well, clearly, Byron, it's not you. So who do I really want to talk to here? Even if they say it's them, you can say, well, tell me about the process that you went through the last time you made a major change like this. Who else in addition to yourself? I mean, clearly you're central to it, but who else in addition to yourself was involved?
Yeah.
It's a nice way. And if you know they're lying to you, say, well, doesn't the director of marketing, I mean, before you do anything to the website, don't they have to get involved and bless that? Well, yeah, of course, the director of marketing. And I suppose the VP of sales might, want to contribute. Yeah. You with me? So just help them along.
All right, thanks. Sometimes it's a little slippery in the beginning, to try and get a good foothold to qualify the priority and to make sure you have a path to power. But thanks.
You're welcome.
And I guess I want to add to Byron's statement there about prospects do lie. Today, I finally got to a no.
Congratulations, that's a win.
Yes, but it was step 4. We had an upfront agreement. We all agreed what was going to happen. Prototypes were generated. Round 1, make changes. Round 2, had all the tech guys. And today I delivered prototype number 3, and all the decision makers were there. And obviously I got the no, but I got the step 3, I guess. So
okay. It's not that they lied. Maybe their priorities changed. I don't know. Do a loss analysis with them. Yeah, just call them up. By the way, key language here. We did a lot of work together. I'd like to do a loss analysis. And by the way, I want to let you know that this is not going to be an attempt to change your mind. In fact, if I ask you to buy this stuff or you start feeling that way, just hang up on me. I'm really looking to find out what happened.
Well, actually, in this case, Scott, they chose to go with a totally different substrate, which my organization doesn't deal with. They were pretty upfront about it. And you know what I actually did out of the kind? I gave them a referral to an organization that handles that substrate.
Good for you. That's your job, Andy. You're supposed to, your job is to help them. By the way, the greatest opening question on your first call with somebody, ask this question. Patrick, 100 people ask for every hour of your time. Today, you've elected to spend that time with me so that we can stay totally focused on that which is important to you and make this the most beneficial hour for you. If our call was up and you sat back in your chair and you put your hands behind your head and said, wow, Scott nailed it. What did we talk about? What did you learn? How did I help you? And guys, at that point, just start taking notes. Okay, because they're going to be talking for about 30 or 40 minutes, like Patrick's prospect dumped on him when he asked the right question.
Yeah.
So it's really, and by the way, after 30, 40 minutes, well, what is it exactly you do? And at that point, it doesn't matter what you do. You're an expert. You're brilliant.
I see some hands raised. I can't actually identify the people. I just see this queue of hands raised. Maybe Charlie's got one, and maybe another. Anybody want to jump in with a question here?
Sure, but I want to defer to Mikhail. She's dying to get her question asked. So I'm going to defer to her, and then we'll come back to me.
Oh,
Hey,
but I
Charlie.
already got to go. So let
No, no.
somebody else. Okay, fine.
You have a question. I'm giving you permission to ask
Thanks,
it.
Charlie. Thanks, Charlie. Well, yeah, I wanted to add to what you said, Scott. Like, I like the question of why now. I'm curious if you like that too. And back to my question about doing free phone calls. Is like 15 minutes okay to do an exploratory phone call like this? Because I really want to set out 1 hour, real sales and strategy sessions for people who pay me.
Sure. Look, I had a salesperson come to me once and they said, I'm scheduling my calls, but I'm always running out of time. And what happens is at the end, I have to start talking faster and we're rushing through the end. And I said, well, how long are you scheduling calls for? He said, an hour. I said, is that long enough? And he said, no. I said, well, schedule an hour and a half. I mean, it's like the old joke. You go to the doctor, my arm hurts when I move it like that. Well, don't move it like that. And so what I'm saying to you, Mikhail, is that if 15 minutes is enough, do 15 minutes. If they need 2 hours, give them 2 hours.
Yeah.
You're asking a how high is up question.
I saw this pattern one time, and it's a good reminder where a lot of the deals I was closing were running over our allotted 30 minutes. And it was where I had free time, they had free time, we could go the distance, we could go another 15, 20 minutes, and it moved everything forward and we closed. And then I set a rule, no back-to-back meetings, because the people who are really interested, they want to keep going. And I actually forgot about that rule, and now I'm stuck in back-to-back meetings again. So I need to get that time back. But it's good advice. And so to close the deal, you have to gotta see it through.
You can also say to him, Patrick, it should take 30 minutes, but let's schedule 45 in case we run over.
Charlie,
I know,
Yeah,
it's
Charlie,
just
you're
I'm
up.
asking about the
Sorry.
free thing, in
Tell
my
you what, why
free
don't you call
time.
me afterwards and I will give you an unlimited amount of time.
I get free time with you? Oh my God.
An
Patrick, connect
unlimited
me.
amount of free time. In fact, the offer goes for everybody.
that's where
Everybody's
he
welcome
gets
to give me a
you.
call.
Guys, this is where he's gonna get you. I'm just kidding.
Let's create a time. We're gonna create a timeline together.
Yeah,
Okay,
make
sorry,
sure
go
your
ahead.
wallet, your jewelry, everything's put away safely before we talk, because
Never shop for a car you can't afford.
That's great.
I'm scared.
Easy terms, easy rate. Charlie, what do you got?
Yes. Good to see you, my friend. You look great.
Thank you. You too.
Guest reselling has evolved over time. We've just had an incredible 2 or 3 years where we couldn't go out and hug one another. Has your process been adjusted in any way because of this pandemic, because people are virtual, because more and more people want to be approached virtually before they actually meet you?
I'm going to say no, because really there's not that much difference between looking at you now or looking at you live across the desk, except you're only this big.
Hey, we're all the same size on Zoom, fella. We're all the same size,
Exactly. So I'm going to say no.
Okay, thank
You
you,
just
Scott.
get a lot more done.
And I think people are more willing to answer your questions in this format, believe it or not, because they're in a hurry, you're in a hurry. They're less. I found people be a lot more. They're a lot more open for some reason. I just found that to be the case. So, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, Andy Valenti. I'm not sure if you've gone on yet or not. Andy, do you have a question?
Yes, I do. Hi, Scott. It's so
Hey,
good.
Andy.
So good to see your face.
Hey, buddy.
One of the most impactful things I learned from you was the skill of active listening. And I'd love it if you wouldn't mind just talking about what that means and how you deploy that in the process.
Sure. Well, again, going back to what makes a top business developer, it is their ability to listen. And listening takes, I think there's 4 levels of listening. Let's see if I can get them all right. The first one is listening but not hearing. Just listen, thinking about when are they going to finish so I can start to talk. The second level, I think, is listening while formulating answers to their objections, right? You're really not hearing, you're just thinking about your stuff. The next level, I believe, is that you're listening with an intention to help them. And the fourth level is, the Zen level, which is you're just in a rhythm with them and the vibes are going right. You're hearing what they're saying. You're deep in the conversation. It's back and forth and getting into it. The body language is right. The tonality is right. And you don't even have to think about what you're saying. It's just right. And that is the highest form of active listening. But again, if you're going into it thinking you're going to close a deal, that's why you're there to sell. Okay. If you're thinking that you're going to, even if you are there to say, if you think you're going to win it, okay, you got to throw that out the window, because when you go in and you're thinking that you're not getting it and you're just there to figure out how you can help them, you can actually listen because there's no pressure. You're not getting this one. You have 10 calls today. You're not getting 10 deals. You're just there to make a friend, see if you can't help them. And it's amazing how they will respond.
I love it. I don't know if anyone else has sales meetings this afternoon, but I have 3 of them, and I'm coming in hot. I've got all the Scott Messer energy flowing through myself right now. I think we have time for one more question. If anybody wants to jump on in and ask another question of Scott. If not, I'd ask for Scott to say a few closing words on sales for us all. But thank you, just as a quick thank you all for being here, for joining us, and for the questions and the engagement. I hope everybody learned something. Again, if there's one more question, raise your hand, please jump in. If not, we'll have Scott. Oh, we got one. I got one. I see a hand up. Reiterate the process component of the 3-legged stool.
Okay. Actually, that is not really the sales process, but that first leg is people. You need to know people. That's important. Second, there is a sales process. And if you don't know what it is, how can you apply it on a sales call? Think about it. And by the way, there's an order to it. Be proficient at that. So people and process, doesn't matter what you're selling, those 2 things, those 2 legs of the sales stool are in every industry. The third thing is the buzzwords. That's the only thing that varies between the technology salesperson and the marketer or the widget manufacturer, whatever service provider. And again, you need to know a little bit, but you don't have to know a lot in most cases, unless you are the seller doer. And then you need to know everything. But you don't have to let them know you know everything until later. Sell today, educate tomorrow. That's why I haven't pulled out Patrick in a long time.
I want to say thank you again. I'm very happy to see you. You did not in any way disappoint. This was exceptional. I took what I learned from you 5-6 years ago and I added on to it today, significantly. So I hope everybody else had some great takeaways from this. Find Scott on LinkedIn, connect with him, and stay in touch. Thanks again for being here, and we'll see you guys all soon.
Yeah, thank you, Patrick. And again, anybody that wants to reach out, I make this offer every time I do something like this. Nobody ever calls, okay? But look me up on LinkedIn if you have a question. Please feel free. I'll give you the time. Happy to help you any way I can. That's what I do. And Patrick, thank you for, by the way, I should have said this earlier. Leads are really important. Salespeople hate to prospect. They hate it. Nerdwise, the kings.
Thanks, Scott. Take it easy, everybody. Happy selling. Let's go close some deals, or let's go get some agreements.
Yeah, there you go.
See ya.
So long, everybody. Thank you.